The governments, civil societies, the media, and everyone concerned to uphold the rule of law are being asked to join in the global efforts to end impunity. Kenya was not left behind as it celebrated this day across the media space with the new cabinet secretary gracing the event.
And you cannot talk about governance if we do not talk about free and independent media. It's against that backdrop that UN Plan of Action on Safety of Journalists was passed. We remain concerned that all over the world, physical abuse and even termination of life for journalists in the line of duty still persists 10 years after the adoption of the UN Plan of Action. This is to be condemned in the strongest terms possible by civilized society everywhere in the world. It is particularly tragic that in some of the recent instances across the global community, crimes against journalists have been perpetrated by those who should be the duty bearers in the protection of freedom of the media and, significantly, the right to life for everyone.
To commemorate the 2022 International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists and the 10 years anniversary of the UN Plan of Action on the Safety of Journalists and the Issues of Impunity, the new Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Eliud Owalo, has vowed to protect the Kenyan journalists.
The whole question of media independence, because the media cannot serve and deliver on its purpose as defined in Articles 33 to 35 unless it is independent, and not just independent, seen to be independent by the people whom we serve. That's our audience, that's the Kenyan people.
My ministry, and of course by extension the entire Kenya Kwanza government, will continue to defend the freedom of the media alongside other civil liberties. Even as we continue to respect these freedoms, ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that social conflict and divergence of opinion, which I had alluded to earlier, is part of a healthy society.
This comes few days after Ashad Sharif, a slain Pakistani journalist who was fatally shot while he was being driven in a motor vehicle registration number KDG 200M by his brother along Kiserian Magadi Road.
Ashad Sharif is renowned not for anything but for journalism in his home country, Pakistan. Many of us did not know that he was in our country until this heinous act happened. As it were, the Kenya police came out to own up that it's their bullet that fell this comrade. It's been many days, turning into weeks now. I think a time has come that the Kenyan public and indeed the international fraternity are owed by our authorities a word on what are the findings of these investigations. It is a key point because if we cannot keep a journalist as prominent as Ashad safe in our country, can we keep ourselves safe? That's a question that we must ask ourselves.
Indeed, most of the time, rogue elements within government have given entire departments, such as law enforcement agents, a bad name while acting in their individual capacities. The government, in my view, must remain vigilant at all times and will indeed do so to protect journalists and citizens against rogue elements within our midst.
Between 2006 and 2020, over 1,200 journalists have been killed around the world, with close to 9 out of 10 cases of these killings remaining judicially unresolved. This is according to the UNESCO Observatory of Killed Journalists.
For the first time after the election, I've not heard or seen any report castigating the media like it did. It happened in 2013 and 2017. Because this time around, media tried as much as we could to ensure that there was no vacuum. Information was flowing to the extent that some point media was short of calling election. I know there is one media house that called election.
The media must also, in equal measure, guard against internal rogue elements whose acts in their individual capacities may tarnish the hard-earned image and reputation of the fourth estate. This may be media owners, journalists at the top echelons who oppress their juniors, or those who engage in gender-based defiant behavior against their colleagues. Commercial interests too come into play to facilitate oppression of journalists and to muzzle free expression. These two must constitute part of what journalists protest every second day of November.
CS Eliud Owalo has pledged to make sure freedom of journalists has been protected to the latter.
We hold media freedom dear to our hearts, and we will do everything possible as government to ensure that media freedom is upheld in conformity to the relevant articles of the Constitution. We do believe in media, we do not believe in media censorship or gagging of the media. We believe that if the media is responsible, then the media should be able to regulate itself.
For Ebro TV, Amode Francis.